Pastor John is a very interesting character. He may be the only one with spoken dialogue that does not speak directly to or at least at the direction of Harry. Pastor John is the first to speak after the star and headliner Mickey Rourke is introduced. His place of spiritual celebration is the Kingdom Mission. That is the location where Harry Angel first met Louis Cipher to discuss the whereabouts of one Johnny Favorite. Like many in Angel Heart, Pastor John has his own mysteries, his own secrets. Let's ask, did Pastor John know who he was dealing with? Did the man who spouted inspiration make a deal with the devil? We take a look at the film, early drafts of the screenplay, and the book for clues. This is where I say, the alternative theories mentioned within may cause anxiety, rage, and disbelief. But that's why you're here, I hope. And kindly consider leaving a like, share, or subscribe if you enjoy this content. It's faster than drinking two sisters cocktails. If we go with only what the film shares, without knowledge sponged from the screenplay, and ignore inspiration from the source material, what we get? The Harlem mission scene, and its performances juxtaposed with a woman in black, cleaning up the bloody mess on the second floor, and we begin to see the tone of the movie. All of this before Harry Angel first shakes hands with Cipher. At first viewing, I thought this scenery was little more than setting religious overtones that reappear throughout. Thought it was just good storytelling. But good storytelling is based on good lore. Lore is history, spoken or unspoken, shown or hinted. It gives the in-film universe and its characters depth, motivations, or foreshadowing fate. Sins of the past are paid in the future. But it's not out of the question that Harry and Cipher showed up uninvited. After all, that's what happened later in the New Orleans church. But there are clues that indicate otherwise. If it's not the wine that Cipher helps himself with, it's where he sits. Cipher is sitting on a throne, Pastor John's throne. Cipher has usurped Pastor John. And a throne is exactly what it is. Elevated, placed on top of steps or dais. This is where the phrase ascending to the throne comes from. The relevance of the pastor's position is referenced early. He lectures his flock, grabs their attention, grabs their money too, and without shame asks for a Rolls Royce.
If you love me and you want to give to me, then I should be in a Rolls Royce.
But the severity of his ego is made known later, when he's carried on the shoulders of his devoted followers. So we're confident Pastor John does think very highly of himself. This makes the fall to earth comedic. Great pride comes with a great crash. In a strange way, both Cipher and Angel serve Pastor John his comeuppance. Or was this Johnny Favorite's idea? One other clue shared is Pastor John's mysterious cabinet, presumed of voodoo and superstitious origins. With no other context, there are a couple messages to the audience that Pastor John is a hypocrite, or a not-so-subtle message about religion in general. And this is a literal, physical foreshadow of Angel revealing the occult. The working draft of the screenplay tells there's more to the story of Pastor John. It builds up his character, the lore of him and his mission. Not everything that's in an early draft of the script makes it to the final cut. There are scenes and dialogue that are filmed but are dropped, and scenes that don't get filmed at all. The script is a collection of ideas and circumstances. While many of these ideas don't make it to the screen, they are still examples of what inspired the writer and director Alan Parker. For one, Pastor John isn't the first tertiary character to have spoken dialogue. That comes after a scene with the newspaper man Siley and a scruffy lady named Mrs. Zelkin. The only reference of Siley that made it to the film was an off-screen voice saying hello to Harry. The film changes some tone and all of the language of Pastor John's sermon. From Winesap's handshake, the rest of the mission scene in the script is preserved in the film, with a couple additions. First is the why one of Pastor John's flock painted the wall with his brains. That's explained by Winesap. It's because the pastor demanded abstinence from his devotees. So the husband popped off, so to speak. I can see why this was dropped. The image of the woman in black, the porcelain bowl, the blood, that's what's needed running up to the moment setting up the introduction of Louis Cipher. More exposition on Pastor John would have just muddled things, with something I'm not sure was supposed to take as a joke or not. However, if we decide to take it seriously as canon, like the poor guy's widow outdoors, then we have an example of how much of a hold the pastor has on his followers down below. He's in their heads, wallets, and purses. The conversation held in the inner sanctum is very faithful to the screenplay, with some additional information, written but not said in the film. After Angel shakes hands goodbye, the movie cuts to Harry on his way to the Sarah Dodds Harvest Memorial Clinic, but the script adds more dialogue when Winesap explains, "This is not Mr. Cipher's church, Mr. Angel. We are guests of Pastor John, a business associate." While we don't know the terms, we're left with two possibilities. Pastor John made a deal with Louis Cipher, a shady businessman, and in all practical sense, thinks he's mortal with questionable ethics. Or Pastor John raised the devil, not unlike Johnny Favorite, and may or may not recognize Lucifer in his Cipher form. As far as we're concerned, no one else inside the mission realizes that there are three strange men upstairs. While Cipher's end of the bargain may be presumed, getting a soul, Pastor John is in it for the money, specifically real estate. As Siley tells Harry, Pastor John bought a hotel in Newark, and all in cash. What's interesting is the quip Siley made of him. Some say it ain't God he's praying to these days. If you look to the source material for inspiration, Falling Angel by William Yortzberg, you won't find a Pastor John, but there is a Reverend Love. Cipher does pay a visit, but it's not called the Kingdom Mission, but the New Temple of Hope. However, Cipher appears in a sheik's costume, complete with turban, naming himself El Cipher. He's introduced by Love as a wise holy man, and it is Cipher who gives the fiery sermon. It is in this portion of the book where a Rolls Royce is mentioned. This is likely where Pastor John's reference is from. But back to Cipher's businesses. The film is ambiguous what Cipher does day to day. I've long assumed he speaks in puns, although his business schedule with Winesap seems legit, at least from Winesap's point of view. We know he attends speaking engagements, likely another pun. But there is an Easter egg in the script pointing to the novel that didn't make it to the film. After Harry talks with Epiphany and closes with,
"Call me if you don't."
Harry pulls out a piece of paper he's been using to brush the mud from his trousers. It's a flybill, advertising a religious meeting with a photo of Cipher. This is a callback to the book, where it's written, "The face on the poster was Louis Cipher. He wore a white turban. His skin looked burnished by the desert wind." Across the top of the poster was printed, El Cipher, Master of the Unknown. The bottom bore this message: "The illustrious and all-knowing El Cipher will address the congregation at the New Temple of Hope. The public is cordially invited to attend, admission free." What makes this interesting is while there are backstories how Cipher appeared with horns and cloven hooves within clouds of smoke, and confessed possessing the bodies of others, which would explain this monstrosity. Cipher also had a more grounded depiction of how he changed appearances, with different costumes, different pseudonyms, or by simply getting a shave. Back to answering, did Pastor John knowingly make a deal with the devil? Or, what I think, was he, like his novel counterpart, thought Cipher as a very convenient business associate, who had gained so much profit for a trivial price, a piece of his soul? Let me know in the comments below, What was Pastor John's deal with Louis Cipher, if anything? This is Mr. G of Synergy saying, hold on to your money as tight as your soul. Check out more videos about the Kingdom Mission. Thanks for watching.